The biggest assessment for this course is the Professional Development Project. On the next slide, you'll see this slide where you can click on the image that takes you to the explanation of this project and what you want to do. Note that when you first go over this can seem pretty overwhelming, but we will step by step work away at this along our 12 classes. So don't feel too lost or overwhelmed at this point. I promise you'll have lots of time to work away at this and have some progress as we go. So I'm going to take you to the main document and explain the basic premise of this project. So essentially what you are doing is creating professional development for your school or a group of teachers at your school where you're going to teach them something related to curriculum foundations with a focus on tech integration. I have lots of exemplars later in this video that will give you an idea of exactly what I'm looking for. But again, essentially you're creating PD for your coworkers, peers on some level, and you're going to practice that PD session with us on the last 2 classes of this course. So each group or individual is going to deliver about approximately a 30-minute PD session to our class. And so that might not be everything you would do if you actually did this at school. It could be just telling us what you prepare to do, and perhaps it would be more like a day or a half a day PD session. So you can do this project in groups or individually. That's completely up to you. You don't necessarily have to be at the same school to work together, because you could build some kind of PD that you could offer at your different schools, etc. So I'm going to scroll down and tell you a little bit more about choosing your topic. So first off, this topic does need to be researched. You should have some credible resources and references to back what you are talking about. Again, in the exemplars, it's really going to show you what I mean for that. In addition to a PD session, you're going to prepare a resource package that you would provide to anyone in that PD session that gives them support in developing whatever the topic you're discussing in class. So below are some examples of different options you could choose for developing your PD. One, you could talk about universal design of learning in your classroom. You could, if you want to zoom in and focus more, in high school or elementary or something like that, using self-directed learning in your classroom, backward designs as it relates to, it could be subject level, it could be grade level, something else, an activity to help you better understand, or staff to better understand, EDI, which we're going to spend class 3 talking about, how to build self-grading assessments. So perhaps you're going to take your school through some assessment building and things like that. You could solely choose a tech or an app and talk about how you can use that to engage and or evaluate your students. You could talk about fair and equitable assessment practices, and then any other option you wish. So as I start talking about the exemplars, I think you'll get some more ideas as well. So if we scroll down to the next page, it gives you some questions that you should use to guide you in developing this PD session or the in-service. One thing that we'll spend more time on later in this course is looking at our inclusive ed policy for Nova Scotia. It's going to be really important that you consider that as you are developing this PD session. In addition, you want to look at some curriculum foundations that we're talking about in the first 6 classes of the course. And then, of course, tech integration is key. So make sure whatever topic you choose, there is a method of tech that you are incorporating in the delivery of that. You should also talk about some of the implications of your topic on curriculum, schools, classrooms, etc. for students and teachers. Connect them again. And then we are also going to consider how would you evaluate the delivery of this PD topic. And we will, in class, talk about that a little bit more. Scrolling down, this breaks it down into the steps. And no, you don't have to do this on your own. I will guide you as we move through this project. So you don't even need to necessarily worry about step number 1 today. I just wanted to give you an idea of what our major assessment is. We'll be spending some time in class number 2 for you to choose what your topic may be. Then you will also have some time along this journey to start to research and gather information to inform your presentation. From there, we're going to use a backward design template to draft the PD session that will be provided to you. In addition, once you have a basic template and an idea for your session, you're going to create a sample lesson. And I have a template there as well. So when you click on this, it's actually going to force a copy of that sample lesson plan that we'll use. But again, we will get into this later in the classes. You're going to complete a self-assessment on what you have developed for that lesson plan. I will provide that with you. You're also going to give some feedback to your peers on what they've been developing. And then you're going to work with your group or some other classmates to develop a peer assessment that we can use to evaluate these different PD sessions. And then finally, you're going to bring that all together and reflect on the different feedback you've received from your peers, etc. And then you're going to present it on the last 2 days of class. So don't worry too much. We're going to piece by piece work through that as we go. The next section is 4 project exemplars that you can review to see what different students in the past have done with this PD project. These are the best of the best for sure that have been taken, especially the top 2. I looked over 5 different professors' courses that they've done in the past for this Curriculum Foundations. And so each one took a different twist on the project. So you'll notice in these top 2, I've included the peer evaluation reflection that they had to include in their final project, where these 2, the bottom 2, example 3 and 4, don't have that. That's because that professor didn't require that portion. However, I do require that, so you want to have a peek at those. Really, it's just a combination of the evaluations and assessments they get back from their peers and themselves when evaluating it before the final presentation. I am going to take a little second to go in and look at example 1 and what they did. And so they decided to do project-based learning. And so this is their presentation that they did for the class, teaching the class, which would also be used if they went to school to do this presentation about project-based learning and why we should use it in the classroom. I'm not going to take the time to go through it, but I do recommend that you do with this or another one. All right, next let's look at their resource package that they use. So I'm going to click on this, and it will take us to this document that they've designed to give anyone who is considering incorporating project-based learning into their teaching practice. And so this would be something after they do their presentation that they would give everyone to use at the end of the PD session. You'll notice with this one, it's really well organized, well laid out, easy to follow with some key headings. On the second page here, it talks about inclusion in PBL. And so that is one thing we're going to be talking about within our classes. You don't necessarily have to have these headings, but just it's nice that it's been incorporated here so that other teachers know how PBL does that. Assessment is going to be a topic that we discuss as well, so it's nice. And that's one you for sure want to have in there. You know, how do we assess whatever the tech practice and teaching practice that you're doing your professional development on. Scrolling down a little bit more, here's some examples of PBL they've provided, how to incorporate it into school, and then big thing, of course, how to integrate technology again, and then research. So that's nice and packaged. Now let's go back to this page. Here is the lesson plan template that they would have used in designing this. And so this I'll provide with to you in one of the I think it will be class 4, where we're going to start to map out and lay out your plan for your PD session. And so they've included that in their project submission. And then at the top, you'll notice here it talks about, so anything strike through was removed from peer feedback, and highlights show details added as per peer feedback. Then coming back to this, then there's a summary of the peer evaluation. So you can check out the other examples as well, And hopefully that's helpful. Again, don't panic at this point. There is lots of time and we'll piece our way through this.